Our next segment, ladies and gentlemen, is on social wellness with the topic Reimagining Tamil Social Fabric Today. Colonel David Devasahayam will be in conversation with Dr. Nirmala Lakshman. I'd like to take a few moments to introduce her before we welcome her to the stage. Dr. Nirmala Lakshman is currently the chairperson of the Hindu group of publications. She founded and edited the Hindu Literary Review, conceptualized and created Young World, India's only children's newspaper supplement, and developed several other feature sections of the Hindu. An illustrious achievement of her career is her role as the founder and curator of Lit for Life, the Hindu's acclaimed literary festival. Recognized as a prestigious platform for authors, intellectuals, and literary enthusiasts, Lit for Life has become an integral part of India's cultural landscape under her stewardship. Her dedication to recognizing and appreciating literary excellence is evident in her initiation of the annual prize for best fiction from the Hindu. In her book, The Tamils, she draws from a wealth of historical information, original research, and her own keen observations of the community that she is part of to craft a rich and expansive exploration of Tamil history, society, and culture. We welcome her to the stage. Welcome, ma'am.
Well, good morning once again, and it gives me great pleasure to be in conversation with Dr. Nirmala Lakshman, chairperson of the Hindu group of publications. And normally these fireside chats are always done by Barkha or Renuka, but there's a specific reason why I decided to take this on. Because every time I used to come on leave from the army, my dad, who was a former military officer and a Second World War veteran, from 1977 to 2007, when he passed away, Dad would never have his breakfast without first reading the Hindu editorial. And by evening, dinner time, he wanted to discuss it with me. So if I hadn't read it myself, he would be quite unsettled. So now every time I go to the office, by the time I reach the office, I normally read the Hindu editorial. So that's how much the Hindu is a part of our lives. So Nirmala knows that the Hindu is not part of any group. It's a national institution, true to power, a voice for the voiceless. And it's really wonderful to see her as the chairperson. But Nirmala, I'll tell you this, that you'll not be remembered for being the chairperson of the Hindu group, because you will be relinquishing next year sometime. She's going to be remembered for this epoch-making monumental effort, a labor of love, the Tamils. You know, normally before a fireside chat, you got to read a book about a person. When I saw this voluminous book, I got scared. But let me tell you, it was unputdownable. It's a truly epoch-making book. And she's going to be remembered for this book. And let's have some audience participation. How many of you have heard or not read this book? Please raise your hand. Oh, so we are going to correct that. The book is available outside. Please do make a small UPI investment. This book is worth every rupee that you invest in it. It's an honest account of Tamil history, Tamil culture, and the Tamil social fabric. And that's the reason that she was eminently suitable for this conversation on social wellness. But Nirmala is, very understated. And when I did a Google search another Nirmala kept popping up. All over, about 40 pages of Nirmala, but not her. And so today I'd like to start by asking a little about yourself, Nirmala. You were the eldest of three sisters and grew up in erstwhile Madras. And you lost your dad early, and then your mother was a force of nature, and everything you, in fact, dedicated the book to her initially. So, can you tell us a little about how it was growing up in erstwhile Madras?
First of all, thank you very much, Colonel, for this wonderful opportunity. And very delighted to be part of this Radiant Conclave. And thank you also to Dr. Renuka David and the rest of the Radiant Company. Wonderful to see dear friends here, Sashi and Jayanti, who raised two hands to say that she's read the book. I think you are the only one to have done that. Thank you very much. And it's been a wonderful opportunity, and I'm very grateful.
You're most welcome. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that basically, when we grew up, because having lost our father at a very young age, we grew up in a largely, it was not a very declared patriarchal family, but there was a lot of that. And in which case, we just sort of grew up with my mother without knowing that we were part of this larger fabric and the larger heritage of India. And we were she taught us that education is the most important thing. And coming from a Gandhian background herself, there's a strong secular spirit that was imbibed in us through her. And I think we grew up with that sense of wanting to contribute to public life, to do public service. And of course, the Hindu was in the background. And I think having lost a father young, we tended to romanticize the association with the Hindu. And she always said that you have to be educated, you have to contribute. And just like you said, it's a public institution, it's a national institution. And you have to, if you want to work there, prove yourself worthy of that legacy. So that was how our journey started.
Well, I'd like to also rest a little on your education. I think it's largely city-based.
Yeah.
Presentation Convent and then Vidyodaya,
Yes.
followed by a graduation in English literature in Women's Christian College, followed by a post-graduation in Stella Maris, and then a doctorate thereafter,
Yes.
over a long period of time.
Yeah.
But why in postmodern literature? Can I just rest on that a little bit?
It was so long ago that I've sort of forgotten the definitions. But what we think of is postmodern literature is that it's literature that doesn't fall into a particular mode or a structure. So what it is a literature that came, modernism is a particular period in contemporary history. And this is a period that came thereafter. And a kind of freedom was imbibed in the way people started writing. That's why I looked at, Margaret Atwood is a particular favorite. And the kind of dystopic universe that she describes is pretty close to the kind of things that we are experiencing in our lives now. So, the society's, the turn towards authoritarianism, the turn towards certain regulations and restrictions, all of that, I think, in postmodern literature, they imagine a world that could happen. And truly now, I think, some of it is at our doorstep already.
So I think that's the base of your very liberal moorings that you have.
Yeah.
Now, you joined Hindu as a cub reporter, and there were no free lunches. You had to come up the hard way, and finally rose to be joint editor. But I find that your focus was more on features, and whether it is the Metroplus or Young World or the Sunday Supplement, I think your contribution was more towards that. And also the Literature Festival, Hindu Lit for Life. These are all your very signature contributions. So why this focus on features and on the news? Why did that happen?
I think when I did start, like everybody else, in the late 80s and 90s, there was a sense that features were sort of lower in the grade of journalism, lower in terms of hierarchy. But I came to realize as I worked on it, this was an opportunity to go deeper into news, into analysis, into what was going on in society. And for me, it became a very happy hunting ground through which I could find writers, do articles, find people who had time to reflect on what's going on in the world today. And I don't think features are in any way kind of less than news. This is a deeper analysis of news, or a deeper track through which one can proceed to look at what's going on in society, whether it's in terms of economics, in terms of the disadvantaged communities, or a whole host of issues. You have opportunity in features to explore these things more. So I never think, I've stopped thinking from the early stages onwards that features are any less than news, because really it's a repackaging of news that goes on when you do features.
Thank you, Nirmala. And now coming on to the aspect of social wellness, you were a woman in a very patriarchal environment. We all know the larger than life patriarchal figures that dominate the Hindu. So coming on to the affiliated question of how was it growing up as a woman in a patriarchal environment? And in terms of social wellness, how are women doing today in society at large?
I think there's been some progress, but really not enough in my view. And as for my own situation, I do think there was a lot of privilege that I had experienced. At the same time, there was a subtle thing within the organization, whether it was from my cohorts, the cousins on the board, or whether it was others who were working in the organization. There's a subtle attitude of, there was a pervasive gender bias, which we experienced growing up in the 70s and, in the 80s and 90s. But subsequently, I think because of legislation, because of movements, because of protests, there's been a lot of progress in terms of gender equality. But I think we've not even scratched the surface. There's so much that's going on: social disadvantages, economic disadvantages, and caste hierarchies. So many issues that still keep women in a much lower. In a lower focus from the national point of view, as well as from their own social wellness aspect. So I think we have a long way to go.
Well, I would be failing in my duty if I didn't address the elephant in the room. And almost every day when we take up the Hindu, you find some honor killing or murder happening. And you touched upon it in some detail, even in your book. And the atrocities against Dalits have not ceased. So what's your comment on that, and where are we headed in that direction?
I think this is something I don't want to comment on other states in India. Certainly aspects of, because of caste identity being so dominant, and especially with Dalit communities continuing to suffer caste violence and caste bigotry, I think there's a lot of issues beneath the surface that we haven't tackled yet. There are political programs, social programs, welfare ideas for the full participation of women. But I think it's still not where it needs to be. And honor killings, I'm sorry to say, are still very much the norm in many parts of rural India and in Tamil Nadu. I encountered a young farmer who, during the course of my research, who was very proud that he could send his 3 daughters to school at some considerable distance. And yet when I probed a little deeper into his story, he spoke about how his brother had committed suicide because, the brother fell in love with the Dalit girl. And he said, I was also party to, objecting to that, the coming together of those 2 young people. And at the end of the day, that Dalit family was driven out of the village, and his brother, whom the parents and the whole family prevented from getting together with this girl, committed suicide. This is just one instance that I directly encountered, but there were multiple stories all across rural Tamil Nadu where, still, and we know, we were looking at all these current day stories also of, people who are, especially Dalits, who continue to be subjected to even to violence, to hatred, and to even murder, because they dare to cross their caste lines, particularly in the terms of marrying into an upper caste. So I think it's very prevalent, and it's a shocking thing, despite legislation, that these things continue to happen in Tamil Nadu and in other parts of India today.
Yeah, it definitely causes concern. And in fact, to address this, I think that is what the Dravidian movement started in the first place, to address the caste system and the self-respect movement by Periyar, and later converted into a political movement and party like the DMK by by Mr. Annadurai. So you rested extensively on that also in your book. So how has the Dravidian movement impacted our social fabric?
I think when it started, it was a brilliant movement, and Periyar fought along with his other colleagues the Brahmin hegemony and the Brahmin domination in legislature, in all manner, in all kinds of public life. And I think he managed to reform a lot on the political side. He also brought in this feeling of the Dravidian identity was brought to the fore, and he fought against religion in marriage, and he brought self-respect marriage and various other things where he was determined to make sure that all non-Brahmins felt that they had an equal footing in society. So this was something that I think that was very dear to his heart, and in his lifetime, I think much was achieved. But subsequently, I'm sorry to say, we seem to have slipped back again. And while the Dravidian ideals are always proclaimed and, part of the rhetoric, I think in terms of practice, we have a long way to go. It seems to have fallen off somewhere. So social justice is another strong aspect of his message. Even that, I think we haven't achieved what we need to. Plus, it's there's a lot more. There is legislative backdrop for this, but there's not enough legislative action. So there's not enough teeth to the law to actually prosecute offenders. And I think that's very sad, because one of the ideals of the Dravidian movement was social justice, was Periyar's message. And I think we're kind of lost, a little bit removed from that today.
In regards to financial progress in our state, I just read a couple of days back that we have registered 11.2% growth. So it's the growth engine of the country today. And we have also had great corporate houses like the TVS Group and the Murugappa Group, who established certain norms for corporate behavior. So how is this relative economic, you can say, better situation that we are in, how has that impacted the social fabric of our state?
I think that apart from being a very productive economic hub, I think corporate groups are now aware of this whole importance of social wellness. And I think there's a lot of attempt made to ensure that the employees, the other day I was talking to somebody who was part of a board that I belong to, the directors were very concerned about the mental and physical well-being of their staff. It was not about just the financial, the remuneration that they got, but it was more about ensuring that there's a happiness, and more than that, a sense of ownership of the work that they do. And I think Tamil Nadu, I'm sure it happens in other states and in other sectors, but I think particularly the larger corporates here have that kind of benevolence may be a wrong word, but there is that sense of welfare, that it's important that for welfare, not just because profits will be better, but because there's a true concern about the well-being of people who are working to contribute to their financial success and progress. I think that's a very interesting thing that comes along with the economic and financial growth. There's a consciousness, whether it's at the small NGO level or a multi-billion-dollar corporate. There's an awareness of the need for people to be well mentally and physically. So I think that's a very important thing, particularly in the Tamils that I encountered.
And Nirmala, you were there for a few years, I think, in the United States before you came back.
Yeah.
And now the Diaspora, we're extremely proud of. And if you look at, Dr. Chandrasekhar, who got the Nobel Prize, or even Indra Nooyi or Sundar Pichai, and I'm sure it's the Mylapore genes of Kamala Harris that almost made her president. So the Diaspora has done exceedingly well. So how has the Diaspora received your book? And at the same time, they maintain their ethnic Tamil culture very strongly wherever they are. So what would you like to comment upon this?
What I found fascinating was, Colonel, though the book couldn't dwell too much on the diaspora. I sort of gave it a nod, saying that, because that would be a whole other book, saying that these people have contributed hugely, not just to the societies that they moved to, but because of a strong cultural and ethical and values-based bonds with the place that they came from, or that their ancestors came from. Particularly in Malaysia, I found that there are third and fourth generation professionals whose grandfathers went as labor, and there was an incredible sense of pride in how their families came up, plus the notion of their connection to being Tamil. And there was a great deal of interest in literature, in cultural habits of the Tamils, and an eagerness to want to know what Tamils, I mean, many of them often visit Chennai or visit Tamil Nadu, but they still wanted to know what was the impact of modernity on our lives, how current day Tamils are progressing. And there's a great sense of connect, which I think may be true more in Asia than in other parts of the world. Although Tamils have fared very, very well, like some of the examples that you mentioned, including Kamala Harris. So we just feel that there is a kind of a tenacity, a strength of purpose, which many of them openly say harken back to their Tamil roots. So it was lovely to have those conversations with many of them, particularly in Malaysia, which I visited with the book a few months ago.
That's really good to know. And now coming back to the media and, heading a traditional group of publications, how is the social media today, where the media creator and the media consumer is changing rapidly in this landscape? How do you find your group positioned, and where is it headed right now?
This is a constant battle that we deal with every day. This countering of fake news, which is rampant not just in social media, but even in things like WhatsApp. And it's very, very difficult because we're always, these things are thrust on us and says, why is it? And there are notions and archetypes of even what the Hindu stands for, which is very, very difficult to kind of contest, except to continue to be who we are. And we're proud of being, rooted in credibility, in authenticity, in truth, and never mind which governments come and go. But to speak truth to power that you mentioned, I think it's part of the Fourth Estate's primary duty. And I'm happy to say that we stand by that. We've been buffeted by onslaughts from various political parties, from various people in power. But I think by and large, we've stood our ground simply because I think this commitment to truth, to authenticity, is what is the most cardinal virtue for any journalism to be practiced. And I think we managed to stick to that. Not always popular. Certainly we've had dropping readership because they think that we are against a particular ethos, which is not true. We just speak the truth and write the truth. But I think it didn't matter so much because that many times readers come back to us because they know that what goes into the Hindu, whether it's in social media or in the printed paper or on our digital platforms, is absolutely the truth that we strive for. And I think all our reporters and writers are all imbibed of the same kind of values, which I think makes you stand tall and proud in that area. So that's the thing, to hold on to our basic values, which we try to do.
So Nirmala, now today is the era of disruption. How is artificial intelligence impacting journalistic writing today?
That's still, I think, kind of troublesome. We haven't resolved it yet. Just like we don't know what makes a digital mechanisms more successful than print, and what is sustainable in terms of financial success. Similarly, AI, the use of AI to provide tools for the writer and reporter are very, very valuable. We have a great archive, wonderful archives. In fact, we have an exhibition going on in the Hindu right now, celebrating Chennai's anniversary. So I think basically using the archives, using AI in our archives to provide reporters with resources and background. But then you always have to ensure that you're honest to that and say that this is AI compiled, or acknowledge that. And there are training programs for our reporters and writers saying, when you use AI, please acknowledge that it's from it's a culmination of things that AI has collated. So it's still a work in progress, and we're not quite sure on, how the future will unravel either. So we don't know unravel or how the future will be in terms of use of AI. But currently we're using it for journalists who do fact checking, who get background from all the information that is gathered by AI, but it's still delicately managed and delicately executed. So we have a long way to go, and I think we are as confused as others in industry about the use of artificial intelligence, and I think we'll find our way as we go along.
Well, coming on to the book again, reading the book was a cathartic experience. In fact, I never had an idea the Sangam era, which lasted 400 BC, the kind of poetry that emanated from there. So reading the book was a cathartic experience. How was it researching? And we all are pretty westernized now. So how was it for you today, researching and writing this book?
I had the good fortune of traveling with people. Basically, I am a journalist and was a journalist, and I believe that I made it very clear that this is not an academic exercise. I told my wonderful friend and editor, David Devasahayam, who incidentally was a columnist for The Hindu for about 20 odd years, that he was the one who said, please do this biography of the Tamils. So I said, David, I'm not an academic. I'm not a historian, but I'm a journalist. And he said, that's exactly what we want. We want someone to share the experience of researching and writing with us. And I found that as I traveled down south, there were a lot of people who were working with inscriptions, who were working with, local history, and who had built up a great body of work, such as, there's a Dr. Vedachalam, there's Dr. Subbarayalu, so many stalwarts who are archaeologists and historians, whose work, I think, hadn't reached the so-called Anglo-Saxon publishing world. And I felt that I was just a messenger to convey their voices. And through 4 years of writing and research, it was encountering the ordinary person, the local historian, just having conversations with them, and actually going to all these sites and places where such a discovery, so wonderful to see inscriptions that have been carved, say 300 BCE or even earlier, from Buddhist inscriptions to Jain monuments to wonderful mural paintings. And there was a vast wealth that I encountered, and I'm not even sure that the book has been able to do justice to what I experienced. But that was the way it started.
Well, that was Nirmala Lakshman for you, chairperson of the Hindu group, and an excellent author. Well, you have one more David amongst your admirers. And thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you very much, Colonel. Thank you also, Renuka. Thank you very much for Radiant for this wonderful opportunity. And you all don't have to buy and read the book. That's something that I felt I should say. Thank you so much.
I'd like to call upon Dr. Renuka David and Dr. Tharoor to please present our dignitaries with a special memento.